Log entry 2487, Galactic date 47.3.299. Admiral Ven Cross reporting. I cannot believe I have to document this catastrophic series of events. The Council insists on a full record, so here we go, the story of how we, the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, managed to step on the biggest quantum mine in existence. It started, as all terrible ideas do, with a routine survey mission. Our long-range scouts detected unusual energy signatures from a previously unexplored spiral arm. Nothing special, right? Just another primitive civilization taking its first steps into the cosmic playground. We detect dozens every cycle. But no, this one had to be different. Admiral Cross High Counselor Vex Ra's hologram flickered in my office that day, her crystalline form catching the light. Your team's preliminary report is concerning. I remember shuffling through the data crystals on my desk, trying to look busy. Concerning? They're barely into their atomic age. The civilization appears to be in some sort of designated rest period. Hibernation. Vex Ra's crystalline features shimmered with interest. Not exactly, I replied, pulling up the sensor readings. They're active, but their military advancement has plateaued. Minimal space presence, no expansion. It's like they've gone to sleep. The data painted a peculiar picture. A species that had mastered nuclear fusion, achieved primitive spaceflight, and then just stopped. Their military technology remained frozen in time while they focused on entertainment, commerce, and something called social media. Fascinating, Vex Ra hummed. A naturally docile species, perhaps. Oh, how I wish I could go back in time and slap myself for what I said next. Their historical records suggest otherwise. They appear to have been quite energetic in the past, but they've clearly evolved beyond that now. The Council debated for 3 full cycles. Half wanted to initiate contact immediately. A sleeping giant is the easiest to guide into the galactic community, they said. The other half urged caution, pointing to unusual patterns in the species' development. But what really sealed our fate was the discovery of their entertainment archives. Thousands upon thousands of stories about alien invasions, and in every single one, these humans emerged victorious. We thought it was charming. Imagine, a species so peaceful they could only dream of warfare. Their creativity speaks to their readiness for advancement, Council member Zar the argued. Look how they channel their ancient aggressive tendencies into harmless entertainment. I stood before the full Council, gave my final assessment, and delivered the most catastrophically wrong recommendation of my career. Earth shows all signs of a post-militant species. Their warriors have been relegated to historical archives and entertainment. I believe we can safely proceed with contact protocols. The Council voted unanimously in favor of contact. And that, dear readers of the future, is how we managed to wake up the most terrifying sleeping giant in the galaxy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me tell you about our spectacular failure of a first contact mission. Log entry 2488, Galactic date 47.3.301. Admiral Ven Cross continuing report. The diplomatic mission? Oh yes, that went exactly as well as setting a plasma reactor to dance mode, which for those fortunate enough to have never witnessed such an event, means a spectacular disaster. We chose our most experienced first contact team, led by Ambassador Naira Val, a being so diplomatic she once negotiated peace with a hostile virus. The landing site was selected with utmost care, a place called Geneva, Switzerland, apparently their hub for international cooperation. Our ships decloaked in broad daylight, putting on the standard light show we use to impress developing worlds. A bit theatrical, perhaps, but it usually works. The humans' response. They tracked every single one of our supposedly stealth vessels before we even revealed ourselves. Admiral Ambassador Val's voice crackled through my comm during the descent. Their primitive radar systems shouldn't be able to. Just stick to the protocol, I interrupted, already feeling a headache building in all 3 of my brain lobes. The human delegation that met us included something called a General Nina Chen and UN Secretary Drake Williams. They smiled. We smiled back. Everything seemed perfect. Then Ambassador Val made her first mistake. She mentioned, quite proudly, how long we'd been observing their planet. 17 years of peaceful observation, she announced, expecting gratitude. General Chen's smile didn't waver, but somehow became more dangerous. 17 years? How fascinating. And during this time, did you happen to notice the Bangalore incident? Ambassador Val blinked all four of her eyes. The what? 3 years ago, Secretary Williams added, still smiling, when an unidentified craft crashed in the Indian Ocean. That was a weather balloon, Val offered weakly. A weather balloon that shot down 2 of our jets in self-defense, General Chen asked, eyebrow raised. That's when we learned our first true lesson about humans. They hadn't been sleeping at all, they'd been quietly watching us watch them. The council meeting that followed was pure chaos. They have orbital defense systems we never detected, Council Member Zar Thai screeched, waving his tentacles. Weapons platforms disguised as space debris. Their military technology isn't stagnant, High Counselor Vex Ra added, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation. They were hiding it. But why? I studied the latest intelligence reports, each one worse than the last. The humans had taken our careful first contact protocols and turned them into a military exercise. Every move we'd made had been analyzed, counter-planned, and prepared for. Perhaps, I suggested, they've been reading too many of their invasion stories. Nobody laughed. Within days, humanity dropped all pretense. They demanded full disclosure of all galactic technologies, civilizations, and potential threats. When we hesitated, they demonstrated their own technological advances. A small fleet of ships emerged from behind their moon ships that matched our own capabilities. We know you're not alone out there, General Chen told us in the follow-up meeting. And we're not interested in playing political games. Earth needs to be ready. Ready? Ready for what? The Council voted to withdraw diplomatic contact pending further assessment. Too late, we realized we hadn't woken a sleeping giant. We'd knocked on the door of a giant who had been very much awake, very much aware, and very, very prepared. Log entry 2489, galactic date 47.3.305. Admiral Ven Cross, continuing analysis. The Council ordered a complete study of human military history. They assigned me to lead it, because apparently I hadn't suffered enough for my first contact recommendation. Let me tell you about Commander Maya Rodriguez. She became our liaison, though designated intimidator might be more accurate. A human female with a smile that could freeze plasma and a mind sharper than molecular blades. So, Admiral, she said during our first meeting, casually disassembling and reassembling one of our quantum pistols. Tell me what you've learned about us. I had spent weeks studying their conflicts, their world wars, their Cold War, their countless regional battles, each more baffling than the last. Your species, I began carefully, watching her hands move with impossible speed across the weapon, adapts to warfare in ways that defy logic. When faced with superior weapons, you don't surrender. You steal the technology, improve it, and turn it against its creators. She nodded, eyes glinting. Go on. You turn primitive projectile weapons into railguns, basic rocket technology into precision-guided missiles, and somehow you weaponized your own nuclear failures into a deterrent strategy. The Cold War was particularly creative, she agreed, now fully upgrading the quantum pistol with parts from her pocket. Nothing motivates human innovation like the threat of total annihilation. Our research team had discovered something terrifying. Humans didn't just adapt to war, they thrived on it. Every conflict made them stronger, more innovative, more dangerous. Your civilization's response to threats is unique, I told her. Most species either become completely peaceful or completely militant. You've achieved some sort of disturbing balance between the two. Commander Rodriguez laughed, testing the newly modified quantum pistol's targeting system. Balance? No, Admiral. We've achieved something much better. We've learned to look peaceful while staying ready for war. The tension between our species grew with each revelation. We discovered humans had turned their entertainment industry into a massive war games simulator. Their video games trained civilian populations in complex military strategies. Their movies explored countless invasion scenarios. Tell me, Admiral Commander Rodriguez asked during another session, why did you think we'd stopped advancing our military? I shifted uncomfortably. Your visible military technology appeared to plateau. Your space presence was minimal. She smiled that predatory smile again. Did it ever occur to you that we kept our best toys hidden? That maybe, just maybe, all those conspiracy theories about secret military space programs weren't so crazy after all. The Council received my reports with growing horror. Humans hadn't evolved beyond warfare, they'd mastered the art of appearing harmless while preparing for any possible threat. They'd turned their entire civilization into a sleeping tiger, ready to pounce at a moment's notice. Your species confuses me, I admitted to Commander Rodriguez during our last meeting. You create incredible art, music, and literature. You show remarkable kindness and empathy. Yet you're always ready for war. That's because we learned the hard way, she replied, holding up the quantum pistol she'd modified. Peace isn't about being harmless. It's about being so well prepared for war that nobody dares to start one. She handed me back the pistol. I noticed she'd improved its efficiency by 200%. Thank you for the practice material, Admiral. Your weapons designs are good, but a bit predictable. As I left that meeting, I realized we hadn't been studying them. They'd been studying us. Log entry 2490, galactic date 47.3.310. Admiral Ven Cross, recording the inevitable disaster. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, decided to draw a line in the cosmic sand. Because apparently poking the humans with a stick hadn't been enough. No, we had to build a wall in front of them and dare them to knock it down. High Counselor Vex Ra called an emergency session. We must contain their expansion before they reach the Proxima colonies. I stood before the Council, trying not to sound as desperate as I felt. With all due respect, they already know about the Proxima colonies. Commander Rodriguez mentioned them by name last week. Impossible, Council Member Czar, they sputtered. Those are our most secret installations. They named the base commanders, their favorite beverages, and suggested improvements to their defense systems. That's when we met General Blake Thompson, Earth's United Command Chief. Picture, if you will, a human male built like a gravity tank, with a voice that could probably command stars to realign themselves. Here's the situation, Thompson said, not even bothering with diplomatic pleasantries. You've got colonies in our backyard. We've got ships ready to explore. Something's got to give. The Council had prepared a lengthy presentation about restricted zones, development quotas, and supervised expansion. They never got to show it. Let me stop you right there, Thompson interrupted. We found your restriction beacon network. Cute system. We've been using them as navigation points for the last month. I watched the Council's collective expressions shift from shock to horror. Those beacons were phase shifted into alternate space. They should have been impossible to detect, let alone use for navigation. Perhaps Vex Ra suggested carefully we could discuss technology sharing agreements. Thompson's laugh could have shattered planets. You mean the technology we've already reverse engineered? Thanks, but we've made our own improvements. That's when our sensors detected the human fleet. They'd somehow hidden an entire armada behind Jupiter's magnetic field. The ships were elegant, dangerous, and completely different from our designs. As a show of good faith, Thompson said, gesturing to a view screen, "Watch this." One of their ships approached an abandoned mining outpost. It fired a single weapon, something we'd never seen before. The outpost didn't explode, it just stopped existing. Quantum deletion cannon, Commander Rodriguez explained, suddenly appearing beside me. Turns out your quantum physics theories had a few gaps. We filled them. The Council erupted in chaos. We had three options except human expansion, try to contain them by force, or negotiate terms. We chose the worst possible option. We tried to bluff. This sector is under Galactic Council protection, Vex Ra announced. Any unauthorized expansion will be met with appropriate force. Thompson and Rodriguez shared a look that I can only describe as predatory amusement. Funny thing about humans, Thompson said, we don't respond well to threats. The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes and 23 seconds. They let us fire first, a properly calibrated warning shot across their flagship's bow. Their response rewrote the laws of space combat. Their ships moved in ways that violated our understanding of physics. Their weapons targeted our vessels through our own shields, as if the defensive barriers weren't even there. But worst of all, they clearly weren't even trying their hardest. "This is becoming embarrassing," Rodriguez commented over an open channel. "Admiral Cross, please tell your fleet to stand down before we have to demonstrate our actual weapons." I gave the order immediately. I'd seen enough of their actual weapons in historical records to know better. The Council signed the Terra Accords that same day. The humans got their unrestricted expansion rights. We got a promise that they wouldn't share their weapons technology with other species. A word of advice Thompson told us as he left the Council chamber. "Next time you find a quiet civilization, check if they're actually sleeping or just waiting to see what the galaxy throws at them." As I watched their fleet disappear, using some drive technology that our sensors couldn't even analyze, I realized we'd made more than a military mistake. We'd created a new galactic superpower, and they were just getting started. Log entry 2491, galactic date 47.3.315. Admiral Van Cross, documenting our obsolescence. The thing about humans that really gets under your scales? They don't just beat you. They turn your own tactics into an art form of warfare that you never even considered. Take the Centauri incident. The Coalition's last desperate attempt to contain human expansion. 12 species, 40 fleets, hundreds of ships surrounding a single human mining operation. "Surrender your installation, Coalition," Admiral Yektra demanded. "You are outnumbered 100 to 1. The human commander, a woman named Captain Lisa Blackwood, responded with 3 words that should have been our first warning. Are we, though? Turns out humans had turned the entire asteroid belt into automated drone ships. Not by building new ships. No, that would have been too obvious. They'd converted the asteroids themselves into weapons. Commander Rodriguez later explained it to me over what she called a victory coffee. "See, Admiral, when you gave us those first star charts, you included all the standard trade routes, the safe paths through asteroid fields, the approved zones for expansion." I nodded, clutching my cup of the bitter human stimulant that I'd grown embarrassingly addicted to. "So naturally," she continued, stirring her drink, "we figured those would be the perfect places to set our traps." The Coalition's defeat was total. The human mining operation turned out to be a command center controlling thousands of weaponized asteroids. They didn't just defeat the Coalition fleet, they captured it. Every single ship. The funny part General Thompson announced in the emergency council session that followed is that we got the idea from your own history. The quantum barrier network you used to contain the Hive Collective? Brilliant stuff. We just made it mobile, and about 1,000 times more powerful. That's when I finally understood our greatest mistake. We hadn't just awakened a sleeping military power. We'd given an incredibly creative, paranoid, and resourceful species access to advanced technology. And they'd turned it into things we'd never even dreamed of. The Coalition fell apart within days. Most species rushed to sign individual treaties with Earth. The rest found their colonies suddenly surrounded by human mining operations. "You have to understand," I pleaded with the Council, "they're not just advancing. They're transforming everything we know about warfare." To prove my point, I showed them the reports from the Proxima sector. Humans had developed something they called quantum mimetic warfare. They could now upload combat techniques directly into their soldiers' minds. A human civilian could become an expert fighter in minutes. But how high, Counselor Vex Raw demanded. Their brains shouldn't be capable of such direct neural uploads. Commander Rodriguez, who somehow always managed to be present for these revelations, laughed. "We spent centuries preparing our brains for it. What did you think all those video games were really for?" The Council watched in horror as humans began offering military protection to younger civilizations, not through traditional alliances, but through what they called defense contracts. Think of it as cosmic insurance, Captain Blackwood explained to a group of newly spacefaring species. "You focus on your development. We'll handle any threats. All we ask is that you remember who your friends are." Within months, humanity had built a network of allied species that rivaled the coalition's centuries of diplomacy. And they did it not through force or coercion, but by becoming exactly what every developing civilization wanted: a powerful, reliable protector who asked very little in return. You know what your biggest mistake was? Commander Rodriguez asked me during our last meeting. You thought warfare was about ships, weapons, and tactics. She gestured to a hologram showing Earth's expanding sphere of influence. But humans? We learned long ago that real power isn't about winning battles. It's about making sure most battles never need to be fought. I watched as she pulled up another display, showing hundreds of human mining operations strategically positioned throughout the galaxy. Dare to guess how many of these are actual mining facilities? She asked with that predatory smile. None of them. Wrong. They're all legitimate mining operations. They just also happen to be fully armed military bases. Because why waste a perfectly good asteroid by making it only a weapon or only a mine? As I prepared my final report for the Council, I couldn't help but admire the elegant brutality of it all. Humans hadn't just prepared for war. They'd turned readiness for war into an art form, a philosophy, and most terrifyingly, a business model. They'd created peace through the promise of overwhelming force, and they'd done it so smoothly that most species were actually grateful for it. The sleeping giant hadn't just woken up. It had already won the game while everyone else was still learning the rules. Log entry 2492, final report, galactic date 47.3.320. Admiral Van Cross, concluding this cautionary tale. You know you've made a spectacular mistake when your species gets demoted from advanced civilization to historical example in the Galactic Encyclopedia. The new Galactic Council held its first session today, in the humans' orbital station, because of course they built a giant space station specifically for galactic governance in less than a year. General Thompson, now Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Force, stood at the center of the chamber. Behind him, Commander Rodriguez and Captain Blackwood flanked a group of human diplomats like honor guards, or perhaps very well-armed warnings. The old rules weren't working, Thompson announced, so we're making new ones, simple ones. Rule 1: all species have the right to defend themselves, and if they can't, Earth will happily provide that defense. Rule 2: technological advancement cannot be restricted, but weapons technology can only be shared through Earth's military oversight program. Rule 3: any attempt to suppress or control developing civilizations will be met with immediate human intervention. But most importantly, Commander Rodriguez added, stepping forward, Rule 4: don't start none, won't be none. The assembled representatives of 50 species watched in silence as humans systematically dismantled 10,000 years of galactic political tradition and replaced it with what they called common sense guidelines. My final report to what remained of our council was brief. We found what we thought was a sleeping giant. Instead, we found a species that had spent their entire history preparing for exactly this moment. They didn't just wake up. They were waiting for us. The humans transformed galactic society in ways we never imagined. Their defense contracts became the foundation of a new economic system. Their technology-sharing programs reshaped scientific development. They even turned warfare into a regulated industry. Think of us as galactic peacekeepers, Captain Blackwood explained to a group of new species representatives. We're not interested in ruling anyone. We just want to make sure everyone plays nice. The price of underestimating humans? Total restructuring of galactic civilization. And the most terrifying part? Most species seemed happier with the new arrangement. You know what your real mistake was? Admiral Commander Rodriguez asked me during the inauguration of the new council. You thought finding a peaceful species meant finding a harmless one. She gestured to the assembled representatives, all conducting trade deals and forming alliances under the watchful eyes of human peacekeepers. True peace doesn't come from being unable to fight, she said. It comes from being so good at fighting that nobody dares to test you. I've retired now. Taken up residence in a human colony, actually. They're surprisingly good neighbors when they're not revolutionizing galactic society. My final wisdom for future generations. When you find a sleeping civilization, check very carefully whether they're actually sleeping or just resting their eyes. And if that civilization turns out to be human? Air run. End log. Admiral Van Cross, signing off for the final time. Galactic Standard Warning Protocol, updated edition 47.3.400. Priority alert: if you have discovered a civilization called Earth, or humans, please follow these vital instructions. 1. Do not attempt first contact without human approval. They already know you're there. Yes, even if you're using that fancy new cloaking technology. Especially if you're using that fancy new cloaking technology. 2. Do not try to restrict their expansion. They take it personally. Very personally. Just ask the former Galactic Coalition. Oh wait, you can't, because there isn't one anymore. 3. If you spot a human mining operation, assume it's also a military base. If you spot a human military base, assume it's also something worse. If you spot something worse, congratulations, you're already surrounded. 4. When humans say they come in peace, they mean it. They also mean they've got enough firepower to ensure that peace remains unbroken. Note from former Admiral Cross. I know what you're thinking. These humans can't be that bad. What's the worst that could happen? I once thought the same thing. Now I live in a human retirement community, drinking their coffee, watching their entertainment broadcasts, and trying not to flinch every time they launch another peaceful exploration fleet. The new golden rule of the galaxy is simple: the humans are always watching. The humans are always ready. And most importantly, the humans are always up to something. Final addendum by Commander Maya Rodriguez. Thanks for the kind words, Admiral Cross. Just a small correction: we're not always up to something. Sometimes we're up to several things at once. Sleep tight, Galaxy. End of official warning document. P.S. Yes, we know you're reading this. P.P.S. Yes, we know about that too. P.P.S. The answer is no, you really don't want to try it. Filed by Office of Galactic Peacekeeping. Location: Earth's totally normal mining operation 47. Status: definitely just a warning document.